Lela Klein is our next speaker. Lela is a native Daytonian who has been practicing union-side labor law for 6 years. Prior to law school, she was a union organizer, and now she is general counsel of, I'm going to get this right, the IUECWA, a national manufacturing union. Yes, that was founded right here in Dayton and is the biggest union in General Electric. She's going to talk to you about labor law.
Okay, spoiler alert, I'm not going to talk to you about labor law. So I'm a union lawyer, which I think when I say that to people, they imagine in their minds, they're thinking about unions, they think of like maybe thugs or Jimmy Hoffa, or maybe like more charitably, they think of something kind of 1930s, like kind of old-fashioned, or maybe just like big burly white guys on a picket line. But when I imagine unions, I imagine these little Latina grandmothers who clean hotel rooms at the Congress Hotel in Chicago. These little abuelitas, they walked the picket line for 10 years to fight back after their employer took away wages and benefits that they really relied on for their families. And this was one of the first labor struggles that I was involved in, so it really has kind of been an inspiration for me. So I see that there's a real difference between the perception of unions and what I know is the reality. Like, women are just as likely to be in unions at this point. Lots of people of color, it's actually African Americans are more likely to be in unions than white people, but there's still this perception of this kind of old line thing. And unions are the only organized force right now that are fighting for the middle class, for the working class, for working people. There's no other organized force that's fighting to raise wages in this country, but there's lots that are fighting to keep it down. So you can see like union membership as it's declined, the middle class has declined with it. That's the middle class share of aggregate income. Charted with the decline in unionism over the last several decades. But there's still this perception problem. I do think things are changing, right? We see the low-wage worker strikes that are happening all over the country. We just saw like the new Gallup poll came out a little while ago. The perceptions of unions are more positive by 5% this year, just in 1 year. So that's kind of a big deal. I think in part because we see these amazing women on the front lines. This is really, a quarter of all workers make minimum wage, and 30% of women workers make minimum wage. So you remember Rosie the Riveter. Yeah. Rosie was created to kind of solve another perception problem, right? You may know this iconic Rosie, but you probably don't know the Alfred Palmer photographs that were an actual series of photographs taken of women working during the war effort. So I chose 4 of my favorites. There's actually a lot of them. Rosie the Riveter, we needed women to go into the workforce in greater numbers, but there was a perception problem, right? People thought of heavy manufacturing and even just working outside of the home as men's work. Now that was just a perception, that wasn't the reality, right? We all know working women, women of color, had been working outside of the home and even in some pretty heavy manufacturing jobs for years before the war effort, but they needed to solve this perception problem. I love these photographs. One of the things I love about them is they just look like they could have been taken yesterday? I mean, they feel so current, right? Just the looks on these women's faces just feel so contemporary. They're kind of badass, right? So as part of my work with unions, I got the opportunity to be involved in a coalition of groups that are trying to kind of re-envision Rosie with modern women in manufacturing. And we're really focused on the transit manufacturing industry, in part because that's where there's going to be a lot of job growth in transit manufacturing as cities upgrade their public transit, their buses and their trains. I love this one, right? Look at her hip. It's like, yeah. So we commissioned a series of photographs of modern Rosies, which you'll start to see after this slide. We have a Pulitzer Prize winning photographer, Deanne Morris, went and took these photos of modern day Rosies. To just show, there's still only 13% of workers in the transit manufacturing sector are women. Women can do this work, right? And so we need to show women and girls that they can do it. It's one of my favorite things that I've been involved in my work, and it's been a real privilege. This is Brenda. She's a member of my union. I'm sorry, this is Judith. She's a member of my union. She works at the St. Cloud New Flyer facility. She makes New Flyer buses. In St. Cloud, Minnesota. She's one of those people who, if you tell her she can't do something, she's going to go do it, right? So people in her family told her this was a woman's job, and so she was like, F that, I'm applying. This is Amy. I feel like her face says it all. Amy was a field mechanic in the Army, and then when she came back stateside, she started working at the Kinkichario facility. She makes trains. She does the inside. She attaches the seats and the handles and things like that. They actually just this week are voting to unionize, so wish them luck. This is Donna. She works in a non-union facility in New Rochelle, Illinois, making trains. She was telling me when I met her that a lot of the women are concentrated in the lower skill, lower pay jobs in her facility, and that just won't happen in a union facility because training opportunities and pay are tagged to things like seniority that are objective. You can't, it's harder to gender discriminate. So they're trying to unionize there, but their employer is really fighting them. This is Chancey Davis. She's the only welder, female welder in the New Flyer facility. She looks super tough in that photo, right? But actually, she's extremely bubbly. This is me and her. I got to meet her when we brought all the women out to California for this photo exhibit. So we were touring a bus facility here, so we had to take the obligatory safety goggles selfie. I have actually a collection of these because that's one of the perks of my job is I get to tour factories a lot. I consider it a perk. So it was really cool to be out in California with all of these women. There you see Judith again with her photograph. And seeing them kind of blossom under the light of the attention and the praise and feeling they all felt really honored to be there and they kind of connected with each other. They're all from all over the country. And while we were out in California, we couldn't do Los Angeles without taking a tour. So we went to the famous, the Man Chinese Theater, I think. And as I was getting ready to take their picture, a New Flyer bus pulled up. So that right there in the picture is a bus that those women built with their own hands. So that was pretty cool. So the look of pride in their face was really cool. So I'll end with, this is Maria Rothstein. She's our very own Maria the Riveter. That's a rivet gun she's holding. So Maria was telling me when we were in Los Angeles, when she moved to St. Cloud, she really thought that she would be doing secretarial work because that had been her training. And when she couldn't find work, this was the recession, she couldn't find work in the secretarial trade, she ended up getting a job in manufacturing. She said she didn't tell any of her friends and family about the job because she felt ashamed because it didn't feel like women's work. But after that experience of coming out to California, she actually, while we were in California, she told me she went on Facebook and changed her profile to show that she worked in manufacturing at New Flyer. So I was proud of that.